is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering The High Lord by Trudy Canavan, chapters 13, 14, and 15. In these chapters, everything goes badly. Like, worst case scenario is happening here. And I have to admit, I really didn't expect things to fly so out of Sonea and Akkarin's control. I have no idea how this is going to be resolved. I could sort of see it coming on other things, and this one I have nothing. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Ashleigh for commissioning this episode. And first of all, I wanted to mention this a little while back. The covers of these that I have been using for the banners are not the covers that are on the books when I purchase them, like on Kindle. The covers that show up on my Kindle look very different and a lot cornier. And the last one, I think, or the first one, but I think it was the last one, had an actual like winged dragon on the cover that made it look like there was some shit going on in these books that definitely is not happening. So I have to say, like, I'm glad that the banners didn't use those images, because if the banners did, I think I would have seen it more often, and it would have implanted the subconscious expectation that there would be like mythical creatures in this world. And instead, I'm looking when I see the posts that I have put up or events that I have made, I'm seeing the ones from the other books that are much simpler, and they all feature Sonea basically, in different stances, I think. So I just wanted to mention that right out of the gate, because it's something that I kept meaning to bring up and forgot. I think it's so funny how publishers will allow somebody to draw art for a cover without any idea what the book actually is about. Like, do you not give them even a summary? You know? I don't know. But anyway, so let us begin. We do, like I said, chapters 13, 14, and 15 here. And chapter 13 begins with Sonea being taught how to make one of these blood gems, which I had said when I saw Akkarin make it, how fucking cool it is. Like, I think it's the wildest thing. And just had some, like, I was going to say low-key admiration, but it really wasn't that low-key. Just had some straight up admiration for this whole idea, even though it's like deeply fucked up and really brain rapey, basically. And the fact that he's teaching her to use it leads me to believe that she's going to do something with it later. And I don't know what she could do with it. But I am really worried about it, because I don't approve of the use of it unless the other person, like Takan, is totally willing and, like, you know, consenting. And I'm worried that she's going to use it for something that's like sort of nefarious. And I'm just like, So I'm kind of concerned about that. Akkarin does not get to finish his lesson. But I will tell you some of the things that he tells us, which we did not know. We knew how these worked. And we knew, you know, exactly how strong a hold you have on someone else's mind based on what we've seen from Lorelin, where he's not, like, able to get away from Akkarin. But he says the connection to the maker cannot be broken unless the gem is destroyed. So if a gem is lost by its wearer and another finds and wears it, the maker will have to put up with the distraction of an unwanted mind connected to his own. Takan told me a story once of an Echani who had staked a slave out to be eaten alive by wild Lemek and put a gem on the man so he could watch. One of the animals ate the gem, and the Echani spent several days driven to distraction by its thoughts. Which is a really dark fucking story, guys. Like, he wanted so much to watch this guy get eaten by wild animals that he fucking put a seeing stone on. I wish that he was driven to more than distraction. I wish that he was just like eaten, but like himself, that he just, became overwhelmed with a desire to be eaten by the animal that wore this or carried the stone. And she asks who the third person is, because he says he's got two people wearing them. Lorelyn, Takan, and a friend in a useful place. Which, I have no guesses on that. I feel like I should have some guesses, and I really, really don't. And she asks why he chose Lorelyn, and Akkarin says, I needed to keep an eye on him. Rothan would never have done anything to cause you harm. Lorelyn, however, would sacrifice you if it meant saving the guild. And she sort of, for a minute, is just like, what, really? And then she stops and thinks about it and is like, you know what, that's fair. I think I would also do that. Which I appreciate that she's got that kind of presence of mind to not take that shit real personally. Sonea's just aces, is all that there is to that. He has proven very useful, however, Akkarin added. He is in contact with the captain of the guard who's investigating the murders. I've been able to estimate how strong each of the spies is based on the number of bodies that are found. Does he know what the gem is? He knows what it does. Poor Lorelyn, she thought. He believes his friend has turned to evil magic and knows that Akkarin can read his every thought. She frowned. But how hard is it for Akkarin to be always conscious of how his friend fears and disapproves of him? Which I like that. Now that we know more about Akkarin, I'm sure it's hard to hear his friend doubting him and being afraid of him and low-key suspecting him of murdering lots of people. Like, that must suck. So yeah, he explains to her how this works, how he found a stone that had been used for this and like studied it and figured out exactly how it worked. And he says, any living part of yourself can be used. Hair works, but not well, because most of it is dead. There's a Takan folktale in which tears were used, but I suspect that is just a romantic fancy. You could cut out a piece of your flesh, but that wouldn't be pleasant or convenient. Blood is the easiest. You'll only need a few drops. Yeah, I'm really like, this is the kind of thing that my mind is always like, well, what about piss? Can you use pee? Because there's another book that I covered for Spoil Me in which this vampire can't drink blood, but he will drink her tears when she's crying and says that it's almost as good. And I really was like, what else is almost as good, my friend? Like, what the fuck? So she begins to use this and then to form the glass ball that she needs to like mix the blood with. And Akkarin all of a sudden sort of like snaps to attention and says, at last, and distracts her. And he tells her, Takan has just received a message. The thieves have found the spy. So they both go out to deal with this woman, which I have to admit, I didn't expect him to take Sonea with him here. I guess he had such a hard time trying to take this woman down the other time that he figures he needs the backup, but still, I was a little bit taken aback by this. So they go out, and let's see. We must not let this woman see you. Tavaka's master probably saw you through his gem before I destroyed it. If any of the Achani see you with me again, they will guess I am training you. They will try to kill you while you're too weak and unskilled to defend yourself. I'm going to, when I get back to that section where she attacks this woman, like the sneak attack, I'm going to read it slowly and see if it appears this woman caught a glimpse of Sonea, but I don't know. So they head out onto the Thieves' Road, and there's a little boy that leads them up through this tunnel to the surface. And the dude, the guard, Gaul, I think is what his name is, says, we've been tagging her for 2 hours. The locals say she's been minding herself away down in there for 2 nights. He pointed toward a nearby door. So this area is the outer circle of the slums. This is like the worst possible place to be. It's where everybody winds up having to stay when the purge is happening because they're not allowed to stay in the city. And this house that this woman has been holed up in is just falling apart, rotting away, barely habitable. It falls apart during the course of the fight, and that is unsurprising because it's barely standing as it is. And Akkarin asks this guy, how do you know, like, she's coming back here tonight and hasn't taken off permanently? And he says that she's left some things in there, so we know she's coming back. So when they get down there, I liked this a lot. Sonea is the one who finds her stuff, because at first Akkarin's like, they clearly said that she left something as if it were valuable, but there's just like nothing in here. What are they talking about? And Sonea knows how people hide things and finds this little like cubby hole, which is big enough for her to fit into when it comes down to it, because they're planning on trying to set up an ambush, but she comes back a lot sooner than they expected. So she's like in there behind this sort of like, there's like sackcloth over the slats between the wood, and mud mashed into the sackcloth so as to make it look like it's just dirt and mud. And when the fight begins, she can barely see anything. She's like peering out through this thing. This woman says, your dirty city is a bit smaller now, and your guild will soon be another man less. Which I didn't put together when she said another man less. She wasn't saying one man less. She said another man less. Basically, I have already killed somebody and I'm about to kill yet another one, which I just didn't appreciate at all the first time around. What would your guild think when its ruler is found dead? Will they work out what killed him? I think not. And begins to really go at it. Let's see, where is it? Oh, yeah. I was thinking of walking in and taking them all at once, but now I think it'll be more fun to lure them out and kill them one by one. I recommend the latter, Akkarin replied. You'll not get far otherwise. Won't I? But I know Kariko is right. Your guild doesn't know higher magic. They're weak and stupid. So stupid that you must hide from them what you know or they would kill you. Which, it's not a good place to be. That everybody's beginning to realize the entire guild has no idea about this magic. Like, that sucks. I hate it. So they begin to fight, and Sonea is trying to stay hidden, but she's like right in the path of Akkarin's attack magic. So she has to create this like ball around herself that's a shield, but it does keep oxygen out. So she has to be really careful about like not staying in there too long, or else she could literally suffocate. And as she's like hidden, she realizes that this woman is stepping inside Sonea's shield and doesn't realize it because she doesn't know that Sonea is there. Sonea's like basically like in the floor. And when you are, this is a little bit of detail that I found really interesting and I really liked. When you are fighting, you create a sphere of protection around yourself. However, a sphere goes down into the ground below your feet, right? And that is how you get protected. And that's part of what happened when she fought Regin, I think. Was at one point Regin forgot to shield himself below his feet, and she like got him from below. Well, this woman is shielding herself from below, but the shield that dips into the ground is a lot harder to move. And that means that if you are moving, you have to lighten up that power around that particular part of the shield in order to move, and then immediately put it back into place once you have stopped again. And so this woman is moving around with this really vulnerable section of her shield, like exposed while she's moving, and doesn't know that she's standing directly above Sonea. So Sonea fucking busts out of this like hidey hole in the ground, slices this woman, puts a hand on her neck, and sucks all of the power out of her in a split second. And I'm going to read this because it's so quick. As the shield passed over her, Sonea grabbed the piece of wood, stood up, and slashed it across the back of the woman's neck. The woman began to turn, but Sonea had anticipated that. She pressed her other hand against the wound and focused all her will into drawing energy into herself as fast as she could. The woman's eyes widened in horrified realization. Her shield disappeared, and her knees buckled. Sonea nearly lost her grip and quickly wound her free arm around the woman's waist. The Shishakan was too heavy, however, and Sonea let the woman sink to the ground. It's like a split second and Sonea has drained her of power. I had no idea this happened that fast. Like, when you drain someone of power using black magic, I figured it probably took a minute or two. And that was why other people, like other victims, had been like bonked over the head, was just to sort of incapacitate them while you took the magic. But Sonea is able to pull this woman's magic in 3 seconds flat, and she's dead. Whoa. Oh, Ashleigh's here. Hi, Ashleigh. Yeah, I just was not ready for how quick that happened. And poor Sonea is not ready either, because she looks down and is like, oh my God. I just killed somebody with fucking black magic. I cannot believe I just did this. What the fuck? And she doesn't really regret it because she knows if she didn't do it, that this was going to be like a fucking, probably either she would die or Akkarin would die or both of them would have died. She had to do this, right? But at the same time, now she's guilty of doing something that most of the other magicians would find unforgivable and something to immediately execute her for. And that is a hard thing to live with, even if you know it's not justified, to know other people would see it that way. I am somebody who really has a hard time coping with like other people's opinions on matters, even when I know they're not true. Something happened recently and like I am holding one person responsible for what happened, and yet things have been painted as if I am going out and like encouraging a mob of people to come after this person, which is not what I'm interested in doing at all. Not what I have been doing at all. But it bothers me, even though that's not what I'm doing, to know that other people seem to believe that that is what I am doing. And evidence will eventually, like, it'll be clear that was not what I was doing at all. But it's still hard to know that everyone is looking at you in a certain way and thinks a certain thing about you, no matter how well you know that it's bullshit, you know? And Sonea is going to be dealing with that in spades a little later when she gets fucking arrested. So we'll get there in a second. But I do want to mention, too, that what this woman was hiding in this little hidey hole was a shawl and a ring from House Sarin, I think it was. And it's later revealed that it was likely a, what do you call it? A sort of trophy, because that woman killed the entire family. Like, the whole family. Just what? That is not necessary. Why'd you do that? So yeah, I hate this woman. I'm glad she's dead. I'm glad Sonea did this. Let's see. Oh, Cyril. House Cyril. Sorry. A flat square on one side of it bore the inkle of House Cyril. Okay. She gets in this fight, kills this woman, and spoiler alert, fucking Sonea Sari saw the whole thing. He was sitting on a roof wanting to watch the battle, and he wasn't ready for Sonea being not only quite capable in magic, but able to kill somebody that easily. Like, he's a little freaked out by it, I think. Which is sort of amusing because Sari's been killing people plenty, and I guess I don't think he realized that she was going to be, and this isn't something that Sonea has done. She's not killed anybody with magic before, but he doesn't know that. He just saw her do it and do it easily. And he can make any sort of conclusion he wants from that. So yeah, this moment where she gets, I'm going to read this. I'm just going to read this. He reached out. So this is Sonea and Akkarin. He reached out and she felt him gently tug something from her hair. A piece of the sacking fell from his hand to the ground. at the end, as Akkarin moved away, she reached up to smooth her hair. Her scalp tingled where he had touched her. Keeping her eyes averted from the body of the dead woman, she followed him out of the room. So, Sari had watched this whole thing, and he had no idea that, I don't even know if he knew she was there, but he at the very least did not think she was going to be part of this fight, I don't think. And when he sees the way, then he remembered how the expression on her face had changed when Akkarin had brushed something out of her hair. He tells Savara, "It was a childhood crush I've known for a long time. She's not for me." "No, you have not," she said, setting the roof creaking as she shifted her weight. "You only just learned that tonight." So, apparently she had a bit of an expression on her face. She's got a crush. I have very mixed feelings on this. On the one hand, I kind of want her and Akkarin to get together because it's so unexpected from the way things started off in this book that she would wind up with him, that the whole idea of it is just blowing me away. On the other hand, he's her mentor, and mentors hooking up with their mentees is something that I find highly questionable and I'm not sure about the ethics of that. So I have a lot of different feelings and feel a lot of different ways about it, and I just haven't made up my mind yet. It's not entirely clear to me what the age difference is between the two of them. I'm sure it's been mentioned how old he is before, but I assume he's at least 10 years older than her. I feel like it's more than that. So, also not thrilled about that. So, Sari and Savara are really getting along. And by getting along, I mean banging like crazy. He is super into her. I don't trust her. I want to, because I would like for Sari to find another girl other than Sonea and be happy. But on the other hand, he doesn't know much about her. And he just is sort of trusting what she's saying. Thing is, she's got magic. Not surprised. He is, which I don't know what to make of that. I thought he knew more about what was going on, but apparently not. And I just don't trust her. That's all I'm going to say. Let's go to Lorelin. Poor Lorelin. He sits up in the middle of the night because somebody is hammering on his door. And Lord Austin is there and says Lord Jolin and his family have been murdered. Lord Jolin and his family. Balkan says later that he went inside and even the servants were dead. Wow. That is fucking cold-blooded. So they meet up in the day room. And I appreciated, as this was all going on, I was like, okay, we know that Akkarin is seeing all of this conversation and everything, right? I am aware that Akkarin can see it all. But I am still not sure how, what was going on, because I know he's being set up, but was it this woman or someone else who did it? Because I didn't put together when they said Lord Jolin that his last name was the same as the name that matched the sigil on the ring that Sonea found. So I didn't put it together that it was the woman they had just killed who probably killed this magician. It took me a while for me to realize that it was supposed to be she had just killed him before she met up with Akkarin. Which again makes sense once she says your guild is about to be another man shorter. It made sense, but I just didn't get it. Ashleigh is saying the author's been very vague with ages. The girls Sonea overheard gossiping said that he's about 32, but I'm sure being a slave would prematurely age you a bit. And Rothan previously said he's only a few years older than Daniel, who I feel like is supposed to be about mid-20s. Then everybody's way younger than I thought. I've been picturing Rothan in his 40s, 50s, because he's got a full-grown son. So a son that's about to try and be dating Sonea, I don't know. I feel like this author doesn't have a good handle on the ages herself, and that's why she's being vague, because she doesn't really know where to put everybody. which is probably because she's angling to get these two together eventually. And I'm not here for that. Like, if you're just trying to massage things so that it's possible for her to be with Akkarin and it not be creepy, that feels a little bit like trying to clean up your mess too late. I think Rothan's in his 40s or 50s. He's not of an age with Daniel or anything. Okay, so he is. Rothan previous. Oh, when you said Rothan previous, he said he's only a few years older than Daniel. I thought you meant he himself, but you're talking about Rothan is saying Akkarin's only a few years older than Daniel. I got you. Okay, so I was like really stopping for a second. Okay, so, Lorlan here, he is trying his best to keep his cool and listen to every piece of evidence, which is really saying something because Lorlan has every reason to assume Akkarin definitely killed these people. He has been victimized by this guy. It has been ugly. He knows secrets. He's being blackmailed. There's not really any reason for him to give Akkarin the benefit of the doubt other than I am a sensible person who is going to look at the facts. So thank God Lorlan is that guy, because I swear to God, it would have been so easy to be duped. And he's the one that brings up, okay, let me see that piece of cloth. Because it turns out one of the victims was holding a piece of cloth that just happened to have the inkle of the High Lord on it. And somebody just happened to see him walking around in his robes. Like he's going to wander around dressed in his full regalia while murdering fucking other magicians and their whole families in the middle of the night. Like, people are not using their head here when they're hearing this information. They're all acting like this is, oh, well, it all adds up. No, it doesn't. You all know Akkarin. He's not a fucking moron. Come on. If he was going to be out there doing this sort of thing, there'd be a million better ways to handle it. And the fact that Lorlan is the only one who thinks to really question it, when Lorlan's got more reason than anyone to think this might be true, doesn't speak super highly of the intelligence of the other magicians in this situation. I was not very impressed. But yeah, so the whole thing, I mean, it looks like it's really bad, but I feel like when you try and frame somebody in such a ham-handed way, it's going to backfire on you. And that does seem to be what I think is going to happen. Like I was saying that when I started this episode, that I don't know how this is going to get wrapped, and I figured that I knew on some other things. In past books, I had like an idea of what could happen, and with this one, I'm not sure. And I'm not sure in that I don't know how Akkarin's going to handle it. I know that he's going to be exonerated of those people's murders because he is going to be truth read, I assume. And I don't know if people are going to trust Lorlan's truth reading of him or what, but I feel like that's going to exonerate him right away. However, then he needs to explain why he's got a bunch of black magic shit around. And that's the part I don't know what he's going to say and what he's going to do. Because as we mentioned, or as was mentioned in like the very first book, there have been attempts to get people's like pictures from their minds when they're doing truth readings projected out for like an audience to see, and nobody has successfully done that. So either everyone trusts Lorlan and his like truth reading of Akkarin, which I'm not sure everyone is going to want to do because they're friends. I hope they do, but they might not. So either they trust him or they all truth read Akkarin and they all see what happened in his mind. And even if they do, it's a very biased picture. Even if you're when you're looking through somebody's memories and their eyes and shuffling through their brain, you're seeing their memories, which are not necessarily completely accurate, right? Like, I don't know if you all have experienced this, but I personally have misremembered things and would have absolutely placed money on my memory being correct. And then am faced with absolute evidence that my memory was 100% wrong. And I have a pretty good memory, but The times when that's happened has really shaken me because I was so positive. So I can't help but wonder about things like that. Are there any points where like truth reading doesn't work because somebody is misremembering something? That's what happens when there are like eyewitnesses with the police and stuff. They actually tell them what they think they saw, but their eyewitness testimony is not hugely credible. So I'm wondering how these memories work. Is it an edited version of how you interpreted things? Or is it as if you DVR'd what was coming through your eyeballs and they see exactly what came through your eyeballs? I get the sense that's what it is, that we're meant to see exactly what they were seeing and that there's no room for any sort of interpretation there, which is very convenient to the story. And I don't hold that against her as a writer. But yeah, I just have a little bit like it's such an easy fix on like whether or not somebody's lying that every single magician would have to sit down and truth read Akkarin and see, and who is there to even corroborate? We had Sonea who was able to believe him because she heard his story and she saw the memories of one of the spies. So I don't know if that would be enough or not. So yeah. I'm trying to find the spot. Oh yeah. So 2 hours ago, my attention was caught by a mental call from Lord Jolin. It was very faint, but I heard my name and detected great fear. When I concentrated on it, however, all I caught was the identity of the caller and the sense that he was being harmed by another with magic before the communication ended abruptly. I attempted to call Lord Jolin, but received no answer. I informed Lady Vinara of the communication, and she told me Lord Jolin was staying with his family in the city. She could not contact him either, so I decided to visit the family home. When I arrived, no servant came to the door. I unlocked it and found a terrible scene inside. The entire household had been killed. I searched the house, discovering the bodies of Jolin's family and servants as I went. I investigated the victims, but found nothing more than scratches and bruises. Then I found Jolin's body. His body? How can it still be whole? Did he exhaust himself? I then called to Vinara to ask her to come and examine the victims. And she says he's been killed by black magic. And I like the fact that like she has learned enough to be able to see that is what happened here. And then this is when they get like the eyewitness that says, oh, I saw a man with black robes, which like you could pay anybody to say anything, you know, an eyewitness here is just it's not much, y'all. And I love that Lorelyn sees that. I took her name and noted the workplace on her token. To tell the truth, I did not begin to give her story any credit until I heard what Lord Balkan had discovered in the house. Now I wish I had asked her more questions or kept her at the guardhouse longer. And they can't find her, which they all assume means that she is dead and that the murderer killed her. But again, that doesn't make any sense. If he knew about her, he would have killed her right there. If he didn't know about her, how does he know who to look for? How does he know a witness exists? He wouldn't kill her after. That's really messy. So obviously, this woman vanished because either she was the murderer pretending to be a witness, or she was just not a witness and had been paid to like pretend to be, and then just decided not to turn up again. You guys are being snowed way too easy. Y'all need to get your brains together. So meanwhile, Lorelyn is sort of like in this weird place where he has this whole time been suspecting that Lorelyn's this murderer and is sort of relieved that everybody's getting on the same page with him right now. And yet at the same time, he doesn't believe what they are all believing. So it's it's sort of like when there's somebody at work that you really can't stand and everybody else thinks they're great and something happens and they all sort of see for the first time that this person's garbage, but they see it because of something that person did not do. So you're like, I really want you all to come to this conclusion, but also that's not what happened. And I'm very conflicted right now. So, how long has he been practicing it, I wonder? Venara said darkly. She looked at Lorelin. Have you ever noticed anything odd about Akkarin, Administrator? Lorelin did not have to pretend to be amused by the question. Odd? Akkarin? He's always been mysterious and secretive, even to me. He could have been practicing for years, Saren muttered. How strong does that make him? What bothers me is how he came by the knowledge, Quito added quietly. Did he learn it during his travels? Lorelin sighed as they began discussing all the possibilities he had considered since discovering the truth for himself. He gave them some time then, just as he was considering interrupting, Balkan spoke up. For now, it does not matter how or where he learned black magic. What matters is whether we can defeat him in a confrontation. Which, he's right. Balkan is talking sense here. And then Balkan says, I was taught by my predecessor the means by which a black magician may be fought. It is not easy, but neither is it impossible. To which I'm like, oh, really, Balkan? I would like to know. Please share with the class. But we do not get that information here. I am very, very interested, however. So this is when Lorelin points out that, like, the scrap of cloth has been cut. And why would the murderer leave something behind that was so clearly, like, cut from his robe? He would have had to notice it happening. Why would the person who cut it not attack someone with the knife rather than cutting a piece of their robe off? Like, it doesn't make any sense. So you think it might have been another guild magician trying to convince us that Akkarin is guilty of his crimes? Venara asked, frowning. I suppose it is possible. Or a magician not of the guild, Lorelin added. If Daniel can find a rogue in Aline, it is possible that others exist. We've seen no other evidence of a rogue magician in Karelia, Saren protested. And rogues tend to be untrained and ignorant. How would a rogue learn black magic? Lorelin shrugged. How would any magician learn black magic? In secret, obviously. We might not like the idea, but whether the killer is Akkarin or someone else, he learned black magic somehow. Which, like, thank you. You gotta spell this out for these people. Come on, guys. Keep up. So perhaps Akkarin isn't the killer, Saren said. If he isn't, he knows we must investigate in the usual fashion and will cooperate with us. But if he is, he may turn on us, Pekin added. So what should we do? So they decide that they're going to go to his house and try and talk to him. Unfortunately, when they get there, he's not there. They intend to talk to Sonea. And this moment, I like this. Sonea, Venara exclaimed. What is her role in this? She dislikes him, Osen said. I would even say she hates him. Lorelin looked at his assistant in surprise. How so? Venara asked. Osen shrugged. An observation I made when she became his favorite. Even now, she doesn't like to be in his company. Which I enjoy a lot because, obviously, he's working on outdated information. So, it's true, and I'm glad that there's somebody there to say this for her, to give her a little veneer of, like, distance from Akkarin. But also, I find it funny, like, that he has not been keeping up and seeing how different her interactions with Akkarin are right now. Their guide for the return journey through the underground passages was the same hard-eyed boy. This is Sonea and Akkarin coming back. And Akkarin stops and realizes that they are all in his study, in his underground room. And he tells her everything that's been happening because they were with a coach, like a coachman was driving them, so he couldn't tell her everything with this guy being at risk of overhearing. So that he had to wait until they were practically alone. And they had their little boy guide as well, who obviously would take that information and go somewhere with it. And she has to, play it cool and let him take the lead here, even though they know that they've been in his place, they've been going through his stuff. They found this underground room with like shards of glass and like blood in a bowl on the table. They go into Sonea's room and find books about black magic in her room. The whole thing is blowing wide open. So what he does is he shows up and trades Sonea for Takan and lets Takan go with the blood gem in his possession still and like act as an in-between. He's the messenger for like the thieves and Sari and everybody out there. And I think that's a really smart move. I'm very surprised that they allowed Takan to go, because he brings it down to like, well, do you want Sonea or Takan? And I'm like, the fact that you guys are allowing him to choose one of the two rather than taking both into custody doesn't make a ton of sense. You guys shouldn't be letting him dictate this. This should be on you, and you pick because you're the ones in charge here. But that is not how it's working out. So I had some questions about that. It felt a little unbelievable and a little too convenient to me because the author just wants Takan to be out there free. And I understand that need, but the way the magicians are handling this when they're as worried as they are doesn't feel like it fits their characters. But yeah, so Sonea gets traded over and she is put in the dome in order to keep her separate from Akkarin and in a place where, like, you know, if she decides to go nuts with magic, it's not going to do any damage. She's going to be completely set away from everybody else. So let's see. Oh yeah, here it is. So bad news, chapter 15. Rothan is told by Tanya that Sonea was arrested. And I feel so bad for Rothan because he's trying so hard to, like, be cool. And he is very worried. And he doesn't know what's going on. He's in the dark so much. And he goes and talks to Sonea a little bit later. And I was glad of how she handled this. He asks why she had books on black magic, and she said to better understand my enemy. And he says something about, you know, he questions that. She says Akkarin said it was necessary. He's like, when did you fucking start caring what Akkarin wants? And she very calmly says, when I learned why he does what he does. And Rothan sort of stops and is like, what does that mean? And she said, look, I found out some shit. I can't tell you because it's his story and he knows the details. And when he explains tomorrow during the hearing, you'll understand. But right now, you have to trust that, like, I'm not out here murdering people. That's not what's happening. And he seems to believe her, but obviously he's still worried. I have to say, I am looking forward to Rothan becoming more of a part of the story again because I miss him. And I just feel like all he's done the past 2 books is, like, be sad. So I'm looking forward to him being able to do something more soon. So let's go to Daniel briefly. Daniel is with this kid, Ferrand, who is very sick. He is better, but he lost a bunch of weight from being poisoned. And as they approach the guild, he notices that Lorlin and Keto and Avanara are there, but the High Lord is not. And he's sort of like, well, what's the deal here? And figures that, like, Akkarin's waiting to speak to him in private. But when they get down out of the carriage, Lorlin says, so we'll deal with you presently. But at the moment, we are having some issues that we need to cope with first. So once we're finished with that, then we'll deal with this shit. And when Daniel finds out that Akkarin has been imprisoned for using black magic to kill somebody, he then starts to think about the book that he has with him, that he went to find on Akkarin's say-so about black magic, and he didn't know that's what it was about when he started reading it. But just reading it is enough to, like, get him expelled. And so now he's in this really weird position where he's like, I did something on the orders of somebody who turns out to be, like, maybe a bad dude, but they have to trust that that's why I did it and not because I'm, like, in league with him or doing something of my own or whatever. So I feel bad for him because what a shitty situation to be in. Like, Daniel didn't ask for any of this, you know? And yeah, it just turns into this fucking big, like, pain in the ass situation where he has to like take Llewellyn aside and explain to him what's going on with this. Also explain to him about how like, oh, I'm not really gay and with this guy. I'm just doing that as a cover for my like big And Llewellyn seems to believe that, which bless his little innocent heart. Like, okay, Llewellyn, you precious cinnamon bun. It never even occurs to him that maybe this guy just knows that y'all are going to be persecuting him. And so he's just saying what he needs to say. Nope, never even enters his head. He's like, oh, wow, it's a ballsy move to go with that considering what happened to you when you were younger and a novice. But okay, sure, I bet that's what's happening. Oh, you sweet little. So, yeah, he is, it seems, going to be okay and doesn't even seem to need to like come forward and talk to the court. I'm not sure what to call it when they do the hearing. Will there be a judge? Will Llewellyn be the judge? But yeah, so I don't know. I'm glad that it looks like Daniel is safe, because if he got like pulled into this whole thing, I don't know what I'd think. But I'm also interested if anything that Daniel has read is going to lead him to think this isn't as evil a magic as he believes. It doesn't feel that way. It seems like he thinks that magic's still pretty evil either way, that black magic is. But yeah, we'll see. Oh yes. Is there anyone else you're protecting? This is Sonea talking to Rothan. I don't know what Akkarin has told anyone or what he wants me to reveal. It'll just have to wait until the hearing. Since when have you cared about what he wants? She held his gaze. Since I learned the reasons for what he does. But that is his story, not mine. You will understand why when he tells it. He regarded her doubtfully. I find that hard to believe, but I will try. Is there anything I can do for you? She shook her head, then hesitated. Rothan knew that Llewellyn had been aware of Akkarin's crime for more than 2 years. What would happen if he told the guild this? She looked up at him. Yes, she said quietly. Protect Llewellyn. And I like that. I think that's a good spot. Like, just watch out for this guy, man. Because, yeah, he's in a bad place. Poor Llewellyn. So then we go to Sari, who's with Savara. And evidently they just had sex and they were about to have sex again when he gets interrupted. And it turns out that, let's see, first one is Goal comes out and says, a guild magician was killed last night and Sonea has been arrested for it, and so has Akkarin, the whole thing. And this is Savara overhears it. Some of the Ichani claim the guild do not know of high magic, and they say it's evil. Akkarin uses it, so we thought this could not be true. So that is why he works in secret. I thought he did not want others to know that his past actions contributed to this situation. Sari, of course, is like, well, what past actions? And she's like, oh, I'm not going to tell you. You'll have to find all of that shit out for yourself. She's not going to share too much with him. So they get interrupted again by somebody who has a code word. And it turns out that this is Takan. And he has this like mental link with Akkarin and is able to tell Sari plenty of what is going on. So he makes him say something that would prove that he knows something only Akkarin would know. And then they found the books in her room. She faces expulsion from the guild. He has been charged with murder and using black magic. If they find him guilty of either, the punishment is execution. He did not murder Lord Jolan. What of this charge of black magic? The servant nodded. Yes, he is guilty of that. If he had not used it, he would not have been able to defeat the murderers. And Sonea, is she guilty? Takan nodded again. The guild has only charged her with learning about black magic. That is why she faces a lesser punishment. If they knew the truth, she would face the same charges as Akkarin. She used black magic to kill the woman, didn't she? Takan looked surprised. Yes, how did you know that? A lucky guess. Should I go to this hearing as a witness? No, he says, thank you for the offer. You should not reveal your involvement. If all goes well, he may need your help in the future. For now, he has only one favor to ask. Ensure the guard finds the body of the murderess and make sure she is wearing her knife. So, yeah, I'm curious what that is going to do to reveal part of the outside plot that's going on here. Like how much weight that's going to have when they find her body. So let's see. Lorelyn is watching Akkarin, who is, surrounded by other magicians and being watched. And he hasn't got his ring on right now because Akkarin is very smart. I didn't even think of this, but Akkarin is just like, okay, they're reading the books now about black magic that I had in my house. And some of those books describe these blood gems. If they see a stone like that on your hand, they're going to figure out that maybe that's happening and destroy it. But me being able to see into your thoughts and talk to you and only you is helpful at this point to both of us. So keep the ring hidden and use it when you can. And I think that's a very smart idea. I have visited the shop the witness works at. Her employers say she did not appear this morning. We checked her home address. Her family told us she did not return home last night. I'm very curious what's going on with this witness. I will return tomorrow morning as you requested unless further information comes my way. And Balkan's asking all the right questions about why he would have murdered her after the fact. And then, it's not behavior I would expect of a black magician. If he cared about hiding evidence, why be so careless earlier in the night? Why not disguise himself? The whole thing just doesn't add up, and I'm glad that they're, starting to see that. It's basically like committing murder on camera while wearing a fucking, name tag. If he's got his inkle on his sleeve, why would you do that? Let's see. Oh, yeah, and then comes Daniel coming to talk to Lorelyn and explaining the whole situation to him. Was this a coincidence, or had Akkarin known the rebels had the book? Or had he been working with the rebels? He drew in a quick breath. Was this how he learned black magic? If so, then why turn them in? So, poor Lorelyn is circling around the same questions. And Daniel is just worried about himself, getting in trouble, which I understand. When the High Lord requested that I find the rebels, he suggested that my assistant and I cause them to know something that could be used to blackmail us into cooperating. Akkarin said he would ensure the guild knew that this information was merely a deception to gain the rebels' trust. Daniel looked up, but obviously Akkarin is no longer in a position to do that. Had he been referring to more than the existence of the rebels? What was this information Daniel had created? He looked at Daniel. The man glanced away, clearly embarrassed. Slowly, Lorelyn began to piece together scraps of gossip he'd heard, until he guessed what Daniel had led the rebels to believe. Interesting, he thought, and a bold move, considering the troubles Daniel faced as a novice. Oh, isn't he precious? Guys, he's like, of course you just made this up. Oh, clearly. What do you mean? Wow, okay. So he sends Daniel away. And the chapter just ends with Lorelyn being like, well, I'm glad somebody's getting some sleep tonight. But I have no idea. And I'm just really curious about exactly what the goal here was with the murderess who obviously set up Akkarin. She murdered a magician, and she knew he was a magician when she did it. So she's obviously pushing to out Akkarin in some way. And it's probably a combination of things to make it so that the one person who can do black magic and stand up against them is out of the way, to make it clear to everyone else that the fact that they kill Akkarin in retaliation for this means that they don't use black magic and are thus weak. There's all kinds of things that this could be leading to. And it's a really tight, neat plan if everybody's a moron. But thankfully, they're not being morons after a minute. They are at first, but then they start to get their act together and think this through properly. Oh, I got so irritated though, you guys, I swear to God. I was just like, how can you be so stupid as to believe that Akkarin is that stupid? Come on, give the guy some fucking credit. But eventually they do start to give him some credit. So thank you. Thank you guys for not insulting him that way. So yeah, that's the end of that section. And I'm just really eager now that this has come out to see how it gets rolled, you know, which way do they spin this? So yeah, I'm looking forward to reading the next section. I think I have another episode. Yeah, I have another episode on Friday. So guys, all come and hang out with me, please. And thank you, Ashleigh, for commissioning this episode. And I appreciate that you were able to be here and give me some info. And I will be seeing you all again very soon with a new episode. Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.